Hi everybody, in this video we are going to go ahead and go over some hints for the TokenPass problem, Part B only. So let's go ahead and look at Part B. So for Part B, again, please realize that it is inside the TokenPass class, and because it's in the TokenPass class, you will probably be using your data fields to do your problems, such as board and current player. But let's look at Part B. So for Part B, it says, write the distribute player tokens method. The tokens are collected and removed from the game at the current player's position. These tokens are distributed one at a time to each player, beginning with the next higher position until there are no more tokens to distribute. So, you are writing this method, and it explains it down here. So it says distributes the tokens from the current player's position one at a time to each player in the game. Distribution begins with the next position and continues until all the tokens have been distributed. If there are still tokens to distribute when the player at the highest position is reached, the next token will be distributed to the player at position 0. So it states a precondition which says that the current player has at least one token, and our post condition is that the current player has not changed. So we will be writing this method. Please keep in mind that the TokenPass class where the method is written this is the class name, these are the field names, that's the constructor, and that's the method you're writing. This is just all a repeat of information from up here. It's just they just took these data fields and constructor header and method header and just put it on the same page as the problem so that you can more easily reference it without turning the page as often. In other words, what's really happening? Well, the TokenPass class, this method that you're writing is just going to pick one of these. Actually, it's not going to pick any random one. It's going to take whatever the current player is. So let's pretend that this one is the current player. And it's just going to distribute the tokens across. So I'll click on this, see, and it's distributing the tokens one by one until there are none left. And then if we do this one, let's pretend that this was the current player. So if I do this, 1, 2, that's what it's doing. So when we're doing this problem, let's think about what we have to do. When you're distributing the tokens, you first need to do two things. Number one, pick up all the tokens in the current spot you're in. And number two, continually distribute the tokens until there are none left. So this problem will take a bit more thought and strategy than Part A, but that's okay. Let's just try to break it down. So, when we continually distribute the tokens until there are none left, what type of structure might we need? Well, we're probably going to need a loop of some sort, so that's really good to keep in mind. Let's also keep in mind some other things. One of them being the post condition. So let's go back and look at that post condition again. It says in the post condition, let me try to zoom in a bit. For the post condition, the current player has not changed. In other words, one of these variables should not change value. Which one of these do you think it is? Well, it's probably going to be current player, which, by the way, is our data field for TokenPass class. Let me try to get back up here. Yep, it's the data field for the TokenPass class that represents the current player, whichever one we chose. So, let's see. Just keep that in mind. When you're doing this problem, so the first thing that we need to think about is just how many times should I distribute the tokens? Well, we need to go ahead and make a variable, and I'm just going to call it num to distribute. This will represent how many tokens you will need to distribute throughout the board. So you definitely need a variable for that. So remember that you're continually distributing the tokens until there are none left. So that means you need to keep track of which spot you are in the array. Are you here? Are you distributing the token to here, and then here, and then here, and then back around again? So you definitely need a variable, we will call it spot, to represent which spot we are on the board. So let's go back and speak in detail about these two major things, picking up all the tokens in the current spot you're in first. So let's delve into this. First of all, before we begin, let's pick up all the tokens in the current spot you're in. This is where the variable num to distribute will come in handy, because when I pick up all the tokens, that's going to be how many tokens I need to distribute, which you'll probably end up using for your loop later to distribute the tokens. Another thing to keep in mind is, after you pick up the tokens, how many tokens should be in that spot on the board? So answer that question, and that will help you guide through the process of picking up the token. So this should be, I used about 2 lines of code to do this. Next, let's go ahead and delve into the fact that we have to continually distribute the tokens one by one until there are none left. So this is where I decided to use the variable spot. Remember, spot represents the spot on the board where the next token should go. So definitely use this. Of course, you still need to use num to distribute, because that's how many times my loop will run, because that's how many tokens I have to distribute. So that's why you need to write a loop until there to distribute the tokens until there are none left. Remember that if spot reaches a position beyond the scope of the board, then it must wrap around to the leftmost position on the board. So if we get all the way to the right, we have to wrap back around and set the position to here, so that we can keep going like this and then not go out of bounds. So that is definitely something to keep in mind as you are doing this problem. Well, that's it for the hints for the problem. Feel free to watch the other videos to get the actual solutions to the problem once you're done writing this out. Thank you.